everybody for sticking around. I know we're running a little bit over, and good time stretch break. I'm Amanda Tassi. I'm an IMAP Media Arts and Practices PhD candidate in the School of Cinematic Arts. And our game is the Miralab. So Turritopsis doornii is this fascinating little jellyfish that is a real-world creature that has immortal properties. It's about 3 millimeters small or big, depending on its point of view. And it actually is fascinating because it starts from an embryo state, and then it grows to a full adult. And then instead of dying after being a full adult, it actually reverses back into a baby embryo again. So I was incredibly inspired by this little jellyfish and what it would be like to play through its point of view in a game and play through these life cycles as levels, and then each one build from there. So that's what inspired the Miralab. So like I said, it's based on real science, and that's what makes it so crazy and fascinating. It's not just a fantasy world. We've actually checked out all the science with Dr. Miglietta, who's at Notre Dame. She's one of the few researchers in the world that is concentrating on Turritopsis doornii. And so this is the idea of sneaking up on learning. So rather than being a didactic teaching game that's not that fun to play, it would inspire curiosity and discovery. One could then go to the website and learn more about Turritopsis from there, but it's not going to be totally explicit within the game, but it will be true to life. So this game is aimed towards IndieCade, IGF, and festivals. It's definitely indie, it's definitely experimental, it's an art-based game. It will have a very unique aesthetic style, which is my expertise. It will be built in Unity. If the engineers had a strong preference for switching over to UDK, we could, but that seems to be the platform of choice for the day. But I'm perfectly happy with Unity and pushing Unity as far as we can go with it. So that was an example of some of our original arts assets that we have so far, and original music by our composer, Igor Nemirovsky, who is somebody that I've collaborated on for short films before. He's super talented. That's actually some original music that he did for a game called The Island. And he's done music for over 30 shorts. He's done the series composer for Video Game High School. He's someone I love to work with, and I'm really looking forward to working with him on this project. So, what is the gameplay of the Miralab? So basically, you are a test subject for scientists who've dropped you off in this underwater laboratory that's just offshore. You've been dropped out of a test tube, and as it turns out, you're one of the sole survivors, so you are a really strong mortal jellyfish blob. This is a great thing, you're really proud of yourself, but suddenly you realize, oh, it's kind of lonely, it's kind of hard out here, and there are lots of predators. I'm only 3 millimeters small, and this is going to be a challenge. So and what you realize is that in order to survive, you're going to need to build a colony around yourself. You're going to need to build a bloom. You're going to need comrades and friends. So here's some animation that we did that shows the jellyfish. And so if you're familiar with Badlands, it's sort of like you can sacrifice part of your colony. That's actually part of gameplay, that you're going to have to sacrifice your people, but it's okay. And another innovation we want to work with is working with a smart mobile device as the game controller. So it's not actually a second screen, but instead you're not looking at it, but we're so familiar with these touch controls at this point that you can intuitively work with the tilt, the rotate. But then when it comes to colony building and formations like that, you can start from a single guy or move into a colony through using that pinch command and other controls like that. So one of the other main mechanics is stinging, of course, your jellyfish. That's your main capability. which changes based upon what part of the cycle you're in. So as an alternate, we are developing for PCs. So if for some reason we encounter problems, we're going to prototype this summer with the smart device, then we can move to Ouya or just simple PC commands. Okay, so the life cycle. To play through one life cycle will take approximately 5 to 10 minutes. There will be 3 different levels, 3 different life cycles that you'll play through that we're planning to make. So the whole game will be approximately 20-ish minutes, 20 to 30 minutes to play through. So you're playing through the phases of the jellyfish's life cycle. The 3 main phases are baby, adult, and blob, with 2 transition phases. When you're a blob, the world is completely dark. This will minimize art assets, which is a good thing. But as you're, but you have this capability. You're also constrained to the ground. Your stinger in this level actually illuminates the world with electricity, and then you can begin to see the world more. The only problem is you don't want to use your stinger too much because it will deplete your energy, which you pick up through eating more and more. So in this level, your objective is to start to gather a little colony for yourself. Once you've achieved this, you start to become a baby. Then you can lift off from the ground a little bit and fly close to the ground. By ground, I mean seafloor. So here you can move around and begin to actually see these objects that in later levels you'll need to move strategically to get through the puzzles. In this phase, the food gets a little more difficult to get, so it's the sea anemone have it inside of them, so you have to jump in without getting eaten and pick up your food. You're also starting to learn how to work with sea currents and sea whirls. And in the beginning, before you get strong enough, you'll get very thrown around by these sea currents, but by the end, as you get stronger, you can actually start to ride them like ramps up to the top of the surface of the ocean. And once you've successfully surfed the sea currents, then you are an adult, which in many ways is a good thing because you have freedom of movement, but you realize that the predators get worse and worse as you become an adult. And then you're also tasked with the responsibility of spawning and reproducing. And then you have to protect your spawn. So you have to move different platforms around. As a colony, you all have to work together to be able to move these platforms around to protect and have barriers for your little guys, which are very tasty, like sushi. And you can also ride currents and surf around, which will be really fun within the game in this level. So there are many enemies. The enemies change with each level. These are some models that we've already created. Actually, all the 3D models you see throughout are assets we already have. So we was showing our team. But the main enemies in the beginning are natural enemies. But then as you play through each successful level, these evil scientists want to give you more and more complex challenges to test and see how you survive and maintain your immortality. One of my favorites is the evil sea turtle. So one of the examples, I'll just skip through that one, but in order to move the sea currents around, you can move them around strategically through moving barriers around. So there are probes from the scientists that come down and will destroy you, and in level 2, there's actually been a virus that's been released into this environment. So half of your colony is affected. So you have to strategically kill out half your colony. And sacrifice them. Here is a screenshot of some of the mock-up right now. Jeremy told me I had to mention this. I won a Student Academy Award last year, the only one from USC, and one of 4 in the country. I worked at Disney ABC Television Group for 3 years before I returned to school, so I have a lot of leadership experience, and I've worked with directed big crews. One of my artists is also a regional finalist for Student Academy Awards this year, Simone. I hope he gets it. He couldn't be here today because he's working the Visions and Voices event, which is a plug for that event at SCA tonight, doing camera projections. So Chris is one of the head designers, and he's worked for Walden and a number of bigger projects in game design. And Z, who has very similar interests in work inspired by biology and different points of view, and she also has mobile experience. So Igor, as I mentioned, is a fabulous composer. We have a couple of engineers. That's definitely what we need to build up. So we need a lead engineer and some more designers at this point. So Ian Dallas, who's a friend, we bonded together in the world building class, and he's been an inspiration and a mentor on this project so far. And Will has agreed to continue to be, and as I mentioned, Dr. Miglietta and the faculty in the middle. And we would also like a producer. So some of the AI challenges: colony flocking, NPC behavior, physics, water currents, dynamic blending between phases of the controls, and the environment building up and deteriorating over time. Smartphone integration. We're going to be doing more recruiting over the summer, have a design Bible set, prototyping, improve the website, additional recruiting in the fall, and a one-cycle prototype. We'll build out 2 other cycles, 2 other levels in the spring. Okay, so that's the Miralab. Thanks for your time.
Cool, thanks guys. So there's a lot that you're trying to teach the player. There's a lot of different stages. I think your timing was 5 to 10 minutes each life cycle. Does that sound right?
Yes.
Do you guys have a plan for kind of usability testing to test, hey, can we teach all the different things we want to do in each stage, given our short time frame?
We're planning on doing usability testing of the initial prototype over the summer, and then all throughout. That'll be a big component, definitely. And actually, in each stage, you're eating, you're stinging, and moving around. And so those controls stay the same. It's just they become more constrained versus more free as you move up. So that's somewhat simple, but the challenges come in working together as a colony later on.
Thank you.
So what does the player want? Like, what's the goal? Can you not hear me?
Oh, no, I was just looking for you. I didn't know you were there.
Okay.
So the goal is exploration, and then also learning about this life cycle. And so survival, maintaining your colony, you actually want to build a bigger and bigger colony so that you can break out of the lab eventually.
And is that going to be like the instant?
Yeah. But once you get out of the lab, then it's much more dangerous. There's more predators.
Hey, first off, I think that's a really fascinating concept. I'm wondering, with the smartphone integration, why separate the smartphone from the gameplay and not just put it on a tablet to begin with and have it all right there in front of the player?
That's a really good question. It's something that I have thought about because I am working on a related project with some of these assets this semester that's all smartphone. However, I think with the level of graphics that we want to achieve, we're really going to need PC-based at this point. And I'm also really interested in using the smartphone as a controller.
I actually just want to echo that concern. I think that, first of all, selecting a platform, you mentioned a number of possibilities, but selecting a platform will get you to focus and solve the problems indigenous to that particular platform. I think that's an important decision to make. And I also think that thinking about your market for this, thinking about this as not just an experimental project, which is beautiful and wonderful, but how could I distribute this as an indie game? I think you want to identify a market that has the devices that you are trying to use, and I think tablet mobile is probably where you're going to wind up.
Any other questions?
So I have a question. Is it like Spore, where there's 5 distinct games
No.
inside of it, or the physics similar between each stage?
So the stages are actually gradual, so it's not like there's a definitive break and then you're in the next stage. So you're actually, it's a gradual development and progression within each stage, and then they build upon one another. So you have more capabilities, and then within each level, you gain more strength and you can do more as well. So I'd say there's similarities to the cell level of Spore, but then from there, that becomes a different game.
I mean, this is your thesis project, is that correct? Is that remembering right?
Yeah.
And so, as such, what is actually your thesis Like, what is the testing part of your thesis besides making the game?
So it's a theory and practice program, and I am writing a lot about science visualization and new forms of science education, and so this will be one aspect of that.
Got it, I see.
And then some other projects I've worked on in the past also relate.
Cool.